Ciphers of Time, Awakening the Legacy. Chapter 9, Malini, the Magician. The sun was just starting to rise when Manu and his brother, who had temporarily taken on his own body with the assistance of Vishwa, reached Vishwa's ashram, the aged walls bathed in a golden hue that belied the turmoil brewing within them. Despite the serenity of the gardens surrounding the ashram, Manu's mind was filled with questions and unsettling thoughts, a stark contrast to the tranquil setting. As per the terms of their arrangement, they were to visit the ashram daily without fail. Remember, we must follow Vishwa's instructions religiously, Manu reminded his brother, his voice steadfast, yet laced with the weight of responsibility he always seemed to bear. His stable nature made him the anchor in this storm of supernatural oddities. They entered the dimly lit chamber where Vishwa waited for them. Manu did not hesitate. He strode forward. Swamiji, we trust that your guidance will help us find solutions to our problems. Vishwa, seated cross-legged on a simple straw mat, looked up at Manu with a gaze that seemed to pierce through to the essence of things. Ah, Manu, he said, his voice calm and reassuring, you perceive them as problems. But cities are powers awakened within you. They're not ailments to be cured, but gifts to be mastered. Manu absorbed the words, his mind still wrestling with the concept. Cities, powers that were once the stuff of legend, now an undeniable part of their reality. He took a deep breath, allowing the idea to settle. But these cities, they activate at random. How can we predict or control something so erratic? Observation and patience, Vishwa replied, with the barest hint of a smile. They appear random now because we have yet to understand their pattern or trigger. It is like the monsoon winds. They seem unpredictable, yet they follow a cycle known to those who study them. Manu nodded, the analytical side of him finding solace in the idea that there might be a pattern to uncover, a mystery to solve. Vishwa simply inclined his head. The only information clear till now, Vishwa began, his voice steady and certain, is that Shantanu changes the host body sometime during the night, and the duration within a host body is random. It may be a day or occasionally a couple of days. Manu processed this information. He glanced at Shantanu, whose eyes were narrowed in thought, likely trying to piece together the puzzle of his own experiences. And Manu, Vishwa continued, turning his attention back to the elder brother while gesturing towards the sprawling landscape that surrounded the ashram. You teleport to some place no more than 5 kilometers away. 5 kilometers, Manu murmured, almost to himself. It was a start, a boundary within which to work. It gave him something tangible to hold on to, a parameter that could be mapped and measured. Thank you, Swamiji, Shantanu said, the gratitude evident in his tone, his voice reflecting the boldness that always simmered beneath his skin. Can I choose who to inhabit? Is there a way to steer this city? Vishwa's smile was enigmatic, reflecting a depth of understanding that came from years of studying the mystic arts. Sure, he replied, the word hanging in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled. But only if you gain mastery over the city. It is not merely about choosing, it is about harmonizing your will with the flow of energies that govern such abilities. Do not underestimate the task before you. Shantanu's stance softened at the sage's words, a mixture of determination and humility taking hold. The thought of choice, of control, was alluring. Yet the gravity of Vishwa's warning resonated with him. This was no mere trick or talent, it was a profound responsibility, a power that demanded respect and discipline. Understood, Shantanu replied, his resolve firming. I'm ready to learn, to put in the work. It's about understanding a part of me that's been hidden away. Manu watched his brother, pride swelling in his chest. As the evening star blinked into existence above them, it felt like an acknowledgement of their commitment, a celestial nod to the journey they were embarking upon. Then we begin at dawn, Vishwa declared, his voice resonating with the authority of one who had walked many paths, seen many dawns. Prepare yourselves, for the road to mastery is long and full of trials. Manu couldn't hold it in any longer and finally asked the question that had been haunting him for so long. Why is it only us who have to face this? He spoke out, his tone a blend of both frustration and a desperate desire for understanding. We're just two average people living our lives and going through our everyday routines. Vishwa raised his hand, not to answer, but to pause the flow of questions spilling from Manu's lips. Wait, he said calmly, yet with an authority that demanded their full attention. Let us begin at the beginning. Describe to me every detail. When did these occurrences start? Where were you? What were you doing? Manu exchanged a glance with Shantanu, who nodded slightly, urging him to recount their tale. They delved into their memories, detailing the mundane moments that led up to the extraordinary events. The first disorienting teleportation, the initial frightful body swap. They spoke of the locations, the times, the feelings that washed over them during each episode. Vishwa listened intently, his eyes never wavering from the brothers, his fingers occasionally jotting down notes on a weathered parchment that rested on a low wooden table beside him. Thank you, Vishwa finally said, rolling the parchment into a tight scroll. Your accounts have been most enlightening. I need time to contemplate these things. His gaze settled on both brothers, instilling a sense of purpose in them. Come back tomorrow. We shall unravel this puzzle together. Of course, Swamiji, Manu replied, bowing his head slightly in respect. As they rose to leave, the air around them seemed charged with potential, with the promise of understanding and perhaps, in time, control. As the ashram nestled into the quiet arms of the evening, the brothers ventured out into the refreshing, cool breeze, their minds twirling like leaves carried by an invisible current. Tomorrow lay ahead, its secrets poised for revelation, each unveiling destined to unfold one layer at a time. Shantanu took a few steps forward and attempted to speak to Manu, but received no response. When he turned his head, he realized that Manu had vanished into thin air. Shantanu couldn't help but smile and continue walking, a sign that he had accepted what was happening around him. The evening's indigo sky was a perfect backdrop for the unexpected encounter that awaited Shantanu. He hadn't gone far when a sleek black car pulled up alongside him, its tinted windows rolling down silently to reveal a face as enigmatic as the dusk itself. Shantanu? The voice was smooth, with an undercurrent of excitement that didn't go unnoticed by Shantanu. He paused, nodding cautiously. Yes, that's me. Allow me to introduce myself, the woman said as she stepped out of the car, her presence commanding yet graceful. I am Malini, known to some as the Mistress of Illusion. I believe you have certain talents that could be of interest. Shantanu's eyebrows rose involuntarily. He had heard of Malini, the new magician whose show was advertised all over the town. She claims to specialize in blending ancient myths with modern spectacle. Word travels fast, he replied, trying to mask his surprise. Indeed it does, Malini smiled, her eyes glinting with a sharp intelligence, especially when it comes to someone with your unique abilities. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I'm talking about your nightly excursions, Shantanu. Your spontaneous acts of transmigration. A flicker of unease passed through Shantanu, but he held his composure. How much did she know? Let's cut to the chase, Malini continued, sensing his restraint. I want to offer you a partnership. Imagine the possibilities. Our magic shows could transcend the realm of mere tricks and sleights of hand. With your skills, we could create performances the likes of which have never been seen. The proposition hung between them like a tantalizing fruit, ripe for the taking. Yet Shantanu hesitated, acutely aware of the risks involved, of the wild nature of his powers. An attractive package, I assure you, Malini added, as if reading his thoughts. Financial benefits aside, think of the control you could gain over your abilities, performing night after night. Practice makes you perfect, doesn't it? Her words struck a chord within him, igniting a spark of ambition that had been dampened by uncertainty and fear. Could this alliance truly help him tame the unpredictable forces within? Was this the path to the mastering his own destiny? Consider it, Shantanu, Malini said, a note of sincerity threading through her persuasive tone. Together we could be unstoppable. As she slid back into her car, leaving Shantanu alone with the echo of her proposition, the stars above seemed to twinkle with a new promise. Shantanu paced back and forth in his small, cramped apartment, unable to shake the offer that kept replaying in his mind. His fingers traced the peeling wallpaper, a constant reminder of his dire financial situation. The only source of income he had was the monthly deposit from his brother Manu. Despite their strained relationship and Shantanu's impulsive behavior, he couldn't bring himself to refuse the money and continued to accept it. But now Malini's proposal was more than just an opportunity. It was a lifeline for him amidst all his worries and struggles. Yet, beneath the surface of this potential salvation, currents of doubt swirled. How could someone so out of sync with himself aspire to control the narrative on stage? Control, he muttered to himself, the word echoing Malini's assurance. The idea was seductive, intoxicating even. To not only harness his city, but to use it, to rise above the hand fate had dealt him, it was a chance to redefine who Shantanu was. A voice boomed through the door. What control? Flashing a smile that conveyed acceptance of their current predicament. You don't care about your brother who suddenly disappeared? Manu's words carried a hint of humor and amusement. The brothers laughed and decided to call it a day, knowing that they had a busy day ahead at Vishwa's ashram. Days later, Shantanu found himself seated across from Malini in her studio, a space alive with the scent of incense and the quiet hum of creativity. Sketches of stage designs littered the walls, each more fantastical than the last, and props from her previous shows loomed in the shadows like artifacts of a sorceress. Imagine it, Shantanu, Malini said, her eyes alight with visions of grandeur. We'll start small, gauge the audience reaction, refine our act. Then, when we're ready, we hit the big stages, the ones where the lights are blinding and the applause is thunderous. Sounds like a plan, Shantanu replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite the tremor of anticipation. But we need to be careful. My abilities aren't exactly reliable yet. Of course, she responded with a nod, leaning back in her chair. We'll have safeguards, precautions. You won't be alone out there. I've got your back. They pored over schedules, discussed costumes that would allow for sudden changes, and brainstormed illusions that could incorporate his unpredictable power. Every detail was dissected and examined under the magnifying glass of their combined experience, his raw, untamed talent and her seasoned showmanship. Trust me, Malini said as they shook hands, sealing their newfound partnership. Together, we'll turn your strange skills into the highlight of the show. This is just the beginning, Shantanu. As he exited the meeting, he carried a portfolio of ideas securely under his arm and a spark of hope glowing in his chest. Perhaps under Malini's guidance, he could finally shape his destiny rather than be shaped by it.